There we go. Yeah, I'm thinking we back. Now we're really back because I turned off the muted button on my mic. All Knicked Up family, how's everybody doing? I'm your host for the night, Tyran. Back in the swing of things. The New York Knicks 25-26 season is coming upon us, and we definitely are excited as Knicks fans. You know, we have a lot of belief in what is coming up in this season, and hopefully the drought of the past 50 years can be over, as Knicks have championship aspirations that we do believe that they can fulfill. Of course, there's been a few changes over the summer, actually post the regular season, and we'll get back into that and try to reflect on what we have coming forward. So I'm not hosting by myself tonight. I got my boy who I haven't seen since actually doing the show. So we're going to bring him back in here. This is the big upstate Joe, my man. What's good, bro?
Hello, hello. Good to be back.
Good to be back, right? Yeah, I'm thinking we're back. I'm telling you, I think we're back. Maybe we're back to 73. Let's hope so, because we know we definitely want to get a championship in New York because it's been a hell of a drought and we've been miserable. So let's see what we can do about that, you know? Ah, man. So let's see. You know, you saw the name. I have it as the Knick head chef. And the only reason being I had to put together a show on my way home, and I'm doing it in the middle of traffic, and the brother was hungry. So that's the reason why, if you notice one thing about tonight's show, there's going to be a little bit of a theme about food, because you know what? It calmed the savage beast, and I'm a little bit hungry. So let's see what we're going to do about this. So everything's food-oriented tonight. So I've been watching a little too much Action Bronson's food show. That's the reason why I'm probably getting into my culinary thing.
Too much Yes Chef?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, chef. Well, you know, his show is If That's Delicious. That's Action Bronson, the hip-hop artist. So he's got a colorful way about talking about food, which I always love. Okay, so enough about me and my food watching. We're going to start off with what I call the Abu Dhabi preseasoning. Mm-hmm. All of them are not aware, or those that are aware who are Knicks fans, the Knicks played their preseason games, two of their preseason games, I should say, against the Philadelphia 76ers in Abu Dhabi as a way of promoting the NBA global program. Very exciting, it seemed. Definitely, we saw some camel riding by the players, a little bonding session. It seemed like it was very festive and just a beautiful thing. I guess, the NBA is a global brand, although I do believe that they need to work more on their domestic game because the product is not great to be extending it to the rest of the world. However, as an ambassador, I'm more than sure for the world's sport. Well, it's not the world sport. Soccer technically is the world sport, but the Knicks are trying to help branch out and grow their brand as well, and the NBA brand. What we did do is we had a chance to kind of get a glimpse into Mike Brown. Mike Brown is the new head coach of the New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau was obviously fired post the season of 24-25. A long coaching search went about, and it was talked about, laughed about by the Knicks, by media and everybody else who had an opinion. And lo and behold, a candidate emerged, and that candidate happens to be Mike Brown. Now, there's always been a little question mark about Mike Brown. Many people were thinking or wondering, were we going to get a replication of Tom Thibodeau? So there's a lot of anticipation to see what he brought to the table. We've heard a lot of that there should be a lot of similarities. However, when you kind of listen to Mike speak about his philosophies on the game and et cetera, you kind of had a little bit of a feel that there's going to be something different, that it's not going to be the same typical Thibodeau thing. First and foremost, we heard that he's willing to extend his bench, which is a huge thing regarding the Knicks in the last 4 years. Something that we've all been kind of tortured by is watching, our great players who we know are capable of winning a lot of games actually get burned out before they even get to the chance to play inside of the big dance. So a lot of curiosities about Mike Brown. Joe, I'm going to ask you, what was one of your thoughts about Mike Brown that you didn't know about, what you were perceiving would be what he would bring to the table prior to what has now transpired on the floor.
I always seem to remember Mike Brown being a defensive coach.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy that's had several runs with several different teams, and we were joking way before he even got hired, like, why is this guy still a candidate for a job? Isn't there like X amount of NBA jobs you have before you're relegated to like the assistant level for the rest of your career? But all the talk's been on offense. And, you know, watching a bit of the games and watching the motion and how things are a little bit different and seeing kind of the focus on Mitch, I think, was interesting, and Mitch's role, and talking about him in the high post, which seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
But just the motion, that kind of Princeton offense kind of thing that you're seeing a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that focus has been on offense, but I always remember him being kind of a defensive-minded coach. That was kind of his calling card.
Mm.
But I think this is a welcome change. I know we've rallied against the offense for years with this team and how predictable it is and how it doesn't seem to be system offense, and it seems to be, you know, blacktop offense, you know. But we'll see. We're not seeing a lot of personnel changes thus far. I mean, God knows what happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
But installing a new offense and a new way of operating offensively and kind of not playing to your best player's strengths is curious. So we have roster stability, but we don't have system stability. So he's going to have to manage that. So that's something we'll be watching closely, I'm sure.
Well, that's a good transition into what I'm going to call is Brown's gravy recipe, because and I must have been wanting some potatoes, because I'm telling you, everything was food oriented. But there's nothing like gravy on top of mashed potatoes. So I'm just thinking that when we're talking about Mike Brown, you know, we figured the potatoes were already peeled and mashed a little bit with Tom Thibodeau. You know, we brought Mike Brown in, or the Knicks brought Mike Brown in about the gravy. He's got to be the topping, the finishing topping on what we've already seen from that didn't work, you know, or did work at one point. I mean, Thibodeau did have a lot of success, albeit it was a little bit mangled at times. So we move forward. We're like, well, you're bringing in someone that you hope can kind of be what everybody always does a comparison, the Steve Kerr to Mark Jackson. So we're watching that transition now. And, you know, when listening to Mike has a lot of great things to say. You know, his philosophies and his thoughts are something I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. You know, will the team buy into it? Obviously, is the biggest question, namely Jalen Brunson. Brunson being the main person, no matter which way you go in this whole equation. Mike Brown is only as successful as Jalen Brunson buying into what he's going to do.
Right.
When talking about that, you know, you hear Mike talk about wanting to run to the corners. That was the big thing. Running to the corners, be able to stretch out the defense, you know, flatten out the defense as he termed it, you know, and try to get a lot of movement, you know, not just one person getting the ball and doing heavy ISO, which granted Jalen Brunson is extremely successful at doing. Yeah. He's elite at doing. I shouldn't even just say successful. He's elite at doing that. But we're seeing Mike Brown say that he wants to play with a certain amount of pace, you know, a certain amount of effort. The one thing that I noticed in watching the games that I was very impressed by is that, much like you alluded to before, his defense, you know, the offense was talked about tremendously, like, oh, what are we going to do on offense? But I'm seeing him implement a defensive philosophy or mindset that is brought or ranked up, you know, it's kind of revved up the tenacity and the intensity on the floor, where you see a lot of deflections, you see a lot of stolen balls now. You know, they're playing with a purpose and an urgency. Something that I thought you would have saw from Tom Thibodeau's team. Like I made the reference when seeing it. I was like, wow, his defense looks like what I thought Tom's would look like. You know, all this time of hearing about Tom being a defensive savant, let alone we're watching Mike Brown now, who actually has guys playing with a certain amount of energy. You know, if he can get, in my opinion, if he can get an effort out of Karl Anthony Towns to just move his feet, you know, just to be in front of a guy, just to show a presence without fouling, I think you'll see the Knicks because the Philadelphia 76ers, I know you didn't get a chance to kind of see the games, but I caught bit and pieces of it. And you can watch Philly, although they were undermanned, you can see that they kind of taken the Knicks took a little bit of their fire away because they were getting frustrated because the clock was milked or the shots were rushed or they're being pushed off the spots that they normally would feel comfortable getting. Now you move forward, you watch the Knicks and say, well, that team is playing with the right concern about we're not letting someone just come in here and mock up the floor. We're going to show we're going to make them earn whatever they're going to get. So that's one.
There could possibly be another side of that, though. This may be less about system and coaching and more about a team that is not tired and a team that is rejuvenated.
Facts.
A little bit, because I think he's pushed a lot of the right buttons
with
maybe some of the problems that folks on the team had with the past regime.
Yeah.
Tom Thibodeau. I think this kind of everybody eats offense with the ball moving and everything like that is really, really good for people's headspaces. It's easy to be engaged when you're seeing the ball. The thing that worries me about him, though, Ty, is he's wore out his welcome.
Yeah, he has.
He comes in good. Like, look at the job he did in Sacramento. I mean, how often do you see Sacramento competitive? He did that. Yes. By year 2, they were done with him. He does have a very meticulous, regimented reputation. Very precise, almost to the point of being a little OCD, I've heard about him.
Yeah.
And it does rub people the wrong way. So, again, this is the early stages. He's saying the right things. He's pushing the right buttons. But as we've seen with Tom Thibodeau, are we in for another Tom Thibodeau situation where I've learned, I've grown, yada, 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 all of those things. And when push comes to shove, Tom became Tom.
Yeah.
Mike Brown going to become Mike Brown again. And how is that going to float in the locker room? Because he has rubbed players the wrong way before. And he has wore out his welcome in places that he's had success.
No, it's true. I think that's the key thing is that, everything, what they said, everything was good just a week ago. That's literally the philosophy in life. Everything was good a week ago. But, what are we doing this week? Because as you put in there, what does Brown do for you? What can Brown do for you? Well, he is meticulous. He has a military background. He's a edger. He's going to poke. He's going to prod. He's going to demand and command. Everything seems cool. It's like anything else. Your parents are cool until they got to discipline you. Everything's good when it's Christmas, but when your ass is on the line, it's a whole different story.
That is an excellent analogy.
So everybody's cool until it's not. So and looking at him, I do see the connectivity. They do seem like they're having more fun. That is the one thing I can say.
He's a good communicator, as long as the message is right.
Yeah, exactly. He seems like the kind of person. He's gotten a chance, from what I understand. He's tried to connect on a personal level with all the players. He spent time with them personally, and he seems to be one of those people that doesn't just make it about basketball. He asks them about their family, and I think he wants to not so much as be liked, but be involved enough that people know that he's invested in them personally,
right?
Just on a professional level, which
that's not a bad way to lead.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Definitely not. Because I kind of felt like with Tom, we weren't in the locker room, so this is all just assumptions. I just feel like Tom was all business except for people he liked a lot, like Jalen and Josh. I think he had like his little coup, so to say, that he was very fond of, and everyone else I think was probably, isolated. He was not going to talk to them. He was not going to. We saw Mikal Bridges, and a few other people have talked outwardly about when going to Thibodeau to have a conversation. It kind of got brushed off. We had Obi Toppin. We saw him have outbursts about his communication, when he was here.
Can't do that with the youngins. They got feelings.
Oh, they got feelings. They got two hands. They feel all the stuff. So, it's a whole different, if you're an old school person, and I do consider
not like us Gen Xers.
Yeah, it's a whole different animal. So, I'm not really a hand you a tissue person myself, but I've learned over time dealing with young people that you got to deliver it a little bit different than I got it delivered. So I'm patient with it. I've learned to be patient more so, but if you're a person that's really on your lawn and you want somebody to get the hell off of it, you probably don't want to tell some of these young people that because they might write you up. So order protection against you. So you got to be very careful. But I do believe that Mike Brown. In looking at him, I mean, these are just early assessments. It could go completely left and sour, but he seems like the right fit for what they're going through right now because I think Tom may have been a little too, I don't want to say anally tight, so to say, when it comes to rigid. There you go. That beats rigid, anal type. So yeah, rigid, quite rigid. And I think after a while, people were like, all right, enough, because you got a bunch of self-motivated guys on the squad. Yeah. You don't got to tell Jalen Brunson to go work out. You don't got to tell Josh to work out. No. Mikal Bridges, from what I understand, is a complete maniac. Like this dude lives, eats, sleeps, and gets up and eats and sleeps and lives basketball. He is a maniac. According to Jalen Brunson, I think said he's a maniac. So Jalen saying he's a maniac, you've got some extremely motivated people. We see Mitch clearly get motivated in the offseason, with his conditioning, a lot of running. And, this actually ties into the next thing. And we can segue pretty well here. It's what I call the fast food break, because I told you I'm hungry. But the fast break basketball style. This is what we're seeing. Mike wanted the team to run. I guess during the offseason, the memo came when he arrived and said, you better be in shape. You better be conditioned, or it's going to really show because we want to pick up the pace. Something that I know
in Sacramento.
Yeah, in Sacramento, you saw that, and I personally, when people talk about this style of basketball in the modern day era, and they go, "Oh, it's so exciting." Yeah, all right. Go back to the '80s. I know people
it gets old quick.
Yeah,
when people run up and down the court.
Yeah, so it's not like nothing new. I just think the fast-paced game requires two things, which people don't tend to think of it in that aspect, is it requires you to defend and to rebound. So those aspects of the game plays into fast break basketball. So when people are asking for a team to be more defensive minded, well, that's part of the fast break game, is that you get stops and you get out in transition.
You turn them into points.
Yeah. So yeah, it's quick, easy baskets. Like he was saying, run to the corners, flatten out the defense. There was a time where you would actually do a three-man weave. I know people are like, what the hell is that? Like somebody weaved in their hair? Yeah, these modern-day people probably don't know that there was such thing as a three-man weave where you actually –
We used to do that in warm-ups in my high school game. They used to do the three-man weave exercise while we were doing layup lines.
Yeah, and it's like people nowadays, it's like they probably don't understand when somebody said, because we're the old heads, so to say. But there was a time where a high percentage shot was not a three-point shot. It was actually the one closest to the basket, because you can get 60 to 70% of your shots, especially if you were a center. You can eat all day in the paint, So a layup would have been a high quality shot as opposed to these running to the line and jerking up these threes, which makes absolutely no sense to me most of the time. However, when we're seeing a little bit of the footage from the Knicks, you are noticing that the conditioning is there. You see a guy like Mitchell Robinson, who we've always been very concerned about, his health and his legs. You've always brought up great points about his physical makeup and how, he's injury prone for certain things with his gait and all that stuff. So when you look at these guys, though, you see a lot of transition. You see a lot of thin bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Karl-Anthony
Towns is trouble.
He looks like that dude. Like, he could be an MVP this year if he plays around and can play on different both sides of the floor, if he can be a presence.
And he's going to ease up on that meniscus that he tore the season before last, too.
Because I think he was walking around with a lot of baby chunk.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk about baby chunk, but I'm not. I'm just saying that him and Brunson both had a little baby chunk on them. Great athletes, but, when you're in this sport, most of the basketball players I always saw that were great were thin. They were never big. The bigs were like when Shaq came in. That was like a, anomaly seeing a guy that size.
And
So,
that's,
go
I
ahead.
hate to interject, that is probably a big contributor to why Mikal Bridges is not injured.
Yep,
He's
absolutely.
not carrying on a lot of weight. That's a lot of pounding on your joints, all of that stuff. That thin body frame
Yep.
leads to longevity.
Yep, built to play basketball. I've never seen like a linebacker play basketball. Meaning the Zion William types that all of us have had questioned, because of his physical makeup. And even though he's smaller now, there's still questions because basketball players, since I've been watching basketball, have always been pretty thin. Even if you look at a guy like Magic Johnson, he was a thin guy. He was tall. He wasn't like as thick as when he got into the 90s. He's a thin guy. He was a thin guy initially. He's all legs and limbs. That's how basketball players usually look.
Michael Cooper.
When you talk about these guys playing 82 games,
AC Green,
Jared Girl himself, Soul Glow. Yeah, for half his career, he was Soul Glow. Yeah, get your Soul Glow. But when you look at that aspect, Karl-Anthony Towns resembles a basketball player right now. Before he looked like a big tall dude. Now he's like he's thinned out. He looks like he's in shape. Once again, it's gonna help the meniscus. It's gonna help a lot of things, your joints, etc. If you're a big person, you're a big guy like I'm a big guy. That's some pressure on your joints after a while as you age. So you don't want to be jumping up and down on with 2 bricks in your back pocket. You're gonna end up feeling it after a while, and that's pretty much the equivalent when you're a big dude. And I think you'll see Karl-Anthony Towns, he's a little bit slower foot. He's a little bit of a plotter, more like more Sasquatchish. I'm not being funny, but he is.
It's going to help his lateral quickness.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we should see more challenges at the rim or the ability to maybe stay and contest some shots. And once again, the better conditioned teams, that's never the worst thing to have as far as a basketball team. That you're extreme, not to the Pat Riley imp of burning out your players because you overwork them. But man, when you have great conditioning, much like you see like with Oklahoma City Thunder, great conditioned team. I'm even seeing Indiana a little bit of their preseason game. I caught a couple of highlights. They're looking like they're revved up on the defensive end and they're in shape. So great theme for Mike Brown to push that narrative. Jalen Brunson clearly has lost a lot of weight also. He looks really in shape. He looks in condition, I should say. And obviously OG and Anunoby, and we know Mikal Bridges, the Iron Man, the Tony Starks of the league. We know what he's going to bring, and he seems like he's overly motivated too. Deuce McBride, Mr. Robinson, all these dudes look.
From what I did see in the game, he looks involved in the offense too, Mikal Bridges.
Yeah. He did a layup. I know for everybody else was probably in shock, but I watched him actually. I was like, wow, he took that to the hoop.
Driving from the top of the key.
Yeah. Most of the time he was always going to fade away from the basket. And him attacking, once again, we talk about layup. I always tell people layups, that's high percentage, not that 3-point ball. I'd rather the 3-point should actually set you up for penetration. Because if you're hitting your 3, now all of a sudden you can be, now they have to guard you. They have to come out and guard you. Now you can blow past them. You can pump fake. You can do a lot of things trying to break down the defense at that point. So, him attacking the basket more, that's just a beautiful thing for the Knicks. So you can't lose doing that. So, but, we're getting a chance to actually see these guys run. It should be a better brand of basketball to watch. Brunson, there's concerns. I think in game 2 he bounced back. He showed his ability to still score and within the flow of the offense. I think his adjustment is going to be the main thing because if you can get him sped up, and I think Steve Nash was one of his idols too at one point. He's one of the people he mimicked his game after. Not that he's ever going to be 7-second or less Steve. However, him constantly dribbling and not giving up his dribble can lead to a lot of different things for the team as far as open shots and everything.
It's interesting you bring that up because, again, for somebody who operates in the paint, he's more or less stationary and moving in the paint, whereas Nash was always penetration into the paint, movement in and out of the paint, back into the paint,
Yeah.
until the right opportunity presented itself. If he could add a bit of that, it would make him even harder to defend.
Yeah. You keep that dribble, man, and just peruse
Yeah.
around the baseline.
He keeps up the dribble, and then it's all pivot feet work.
Yeah.
And it's effective. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also somebody that's always looking to add something to the arsenal.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that makes him great.
Yeah. I'm still shocked sometimes that he's in our uniform because I'm like, the top 10 list came out.
We don't get players like that, especially in free agency.
No. And also knowing that the knock or the asterisk next to him was like, maybe he's not as good. Maybe he's not. He'll be average. He'll be okay. He'll be an okay point guard for us. I don't think no one except Jalen and Jalen's father, I always say this, well, he was capable of doing anything we're seeing.
No.
And being an MVP caliber top. I mean, he was listed as a top 10 player. He was number 10, which I thought was blasphemy. I just think that he's more of a top 5 player. Not no Homer Simpson bias here. It's just I look at the results of what he gets out of a team in this market, and the fact that the Knicks every season under his belt have gotten further. So,
something about Brunson, man. I remember that series against Utah when Luka was out, where he really kind of broke out when he was with Dallas.
Yeah.
And I remember them talking about bringing him in, and I remember thinking, yeah, but why isn't Dallas trying to keep him harder? Why didn't Dallas lock him up? If that, in thinking maybe that was an anomaly, because to tell you the truth, if he was truly capable of that, they would have been crazy to let him go.
Yeah.
And that's why I looked a little sourly kind of on the signing at the time. I was like, yeah, well, Jalen Brunson, whatever. How many times over our fandom have we seen somebody light it up for 40 for a series of games and look like the truth, for God's sakes?
Yeah.
They're a journeyman. But yeah, stuff doesn't usually work out like that for this team.
Definitely. I think about, our window of things working out was Jeremy Lin for 3 weeks. These are
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's like you saw that and you're like, oh man, this is what it looks like. To have someone, who's
he reminded me of Nash during that. Actually,
what's that you said?
He reminded me of Nash a little bit. Played a little bit like he had a little bit of Nash in his game when he was in his highly effective period.
Yeah, he was.
That was also maybe D'Antoni's influence too.
Probably so. That was a memorable moment. Which when I hear about it only being 3 weeks, I'm like, wow, we sucked as a franchise for a long time because the fact that we were living on 3 weeks and John Starks don't. Man, this has just been ugly for us when I think about it. So,
and it was like an alien spaceship landed in Central Park. Like it was that big of an event. Those 3 weeks.
Yeah, for me always, and I watch the highlight no matter when I see it. It was the Toronto game because I was, obviously we all think but it's like the Toronto game was like. He's like, give me the ball.
And he hit that jumper and he's backpedaling with his tongue out of his mouth.
It was one of the most surreal moments because I'm like, well, damn, is he like? You wonder, much like we did with Brunson a little bit, but we've seen now enough tape on him. But you're like, is he really? Is he the real deal? Because when you come here and then these lights are bright and burning, and that jersey's heavy, and then you're seeing a kid basically who was on the in the heap.
Yeah.
He's out and all of a sudden he's captured the world. He didn't even just capture
him. And you could feel Melo hating him.
Melo didn't like him. Melo regretted. Supposedly Melo went to D'Antoni and said, give Jeremy a shot. I bet you Melo wanted to cut his tongue out. He's like, yeah, he wanted to go. No.
2020 hindsight.
Man, he was, from what they say, he was. They say Jeremy was also. We're not in the locker, but this is just the rumors. It's Jeremy. He was feeling himself now.
Oh, definitely.
Why would he not? Why would he not? He's the biggest star. He was literally the biggest star in the NBA for those 3 weeks. He was the biggest star because globally, with the Chinese market, and just the storyline. Who couldn't get behind that?
Yeah.
and he's winning. It wasn't like he was, dogging it. He just had a
No,
couple
but
of great games.
he
But,
was he was a unicorn, man, an
you know,
Asian basketball player playing in the NBA at that level on that stage. Crazy.
crazy, absolutely crazy. I always still felt that Melo, and I'm going to move on because I know people probably like we talk about Jeremy Lin, but I, I always felt like the Miami game. I think Melo went to his boys and was like, "I'm not going to help him at all. You go get him," because
Mhm.
I've never seen a kid get swarmed that bad. And then there was nobody rotating to give him an avenue for passing out of those double teams. And Wade and LeBron at those times were like the Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, them Dobermans we talk about. They were like that, the intensity on defense. And it's like, I think Melo's like, just get him. I don't like him. Get him. I'm not going to help him. And
Mhm.
that was the supposed exposure game to Lynn. So I'm like, well, I just think it's bad theater for Melo too. I like him, but I never looked at him the same after that. That's kind of crazy.
No, I can appreciate the art, but I
That,
was never really a fan of the man.
yeah, I'm not the canvas. The canvas is whatever. I wouldn't buy the art. But you're right. He's an artist, but I wouldn't buy the art.
Oh yeah, he's an artist.
He was. I mean, prolific scorer. I mean, he's one of the best I've ever seen. There's no doubt about it.
And
He had
plenty of people will tell you he was the hardest cover they ever had.
It's like he reminds me a lot of two people, but he reminds me a lot of Mark Aguirre, and then he reminds me a little bit of Adrian
I
Dantley.
was just the two
Mark,
that were traded for each other. Yeah.
Mark was a bruising beast. People remember him from the Pistons, not the Dallas Mavs. When he had that kind of game that he had the big caboose back there. So he back much like Melo, he backed people down. He brutalized you. He would eat you alive. So
right. I got to pause the audience right now and pause everything because we're not in like mid-season form yet. So we're going on another tangent. But I have to ask you because you're a basketball historian.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows the story that's been watching basketball as long as we have about the Pistons trading Adrian Dantley for Mark Aguirre because of the relationship that Isaiah Thomas had with Mark Aguirre.
Yep.
Who's the better player of the two?
Probably Dantley.
I think Dantley.
Dantley was a better scorer. They should have never even moved him. I mean, I understand.
Dantley was a bad man.
That was a bad dude. Yeah, he'd give you some business, some serious business. For everybody who don't know, if you're younger, Google or YouTube Adrian Dantley.
Yeah.
I was shocked when it happened because I'm like, Dantley? It's like Dantley's a killer.
Yeah.
And, granted they worked better from, Mark. They obviously won back-to-back titles, but Adrian Dantley was a bad dude, man. I wish they would get more to those guys so some of these young people can kind of get a perspective of the entire history of basketball, as opposed to just this microcosm that we get as far as through YouTubes and sensationalism. All right, so let us transition because we got to get
right.
This is a Knicks show. This ain't a Pistons.
Let's keep on task.
Yeah,
like I said, we're not in mid-season form yet.
Yeah. So bear with us, people. Bear with us, but we'll be entertaining either way. We love hoops. So we're gonna move on to one thing. I don't like big wings, but we got to talk about jumbo wings in New York, which is Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby came out in his second game of the preseason and completely looked like he was completely locked in. And as much like we said, we're seeing from Mikal Bridges, it looked like a newfound fire about the game in his approach. I know that him and Mike Brown seemingly have a very close relationship with one another. They're the dudes, they've spent most of the summer, Mikal came in for voluntary workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much, I guess he probably sleeps in the gym. So he's, like I said, he's a fanatic from what I understand about making sure that he's involved in anything basketball. And he's mama's boy. He don't even go out. He just hang with the mama. It's so funny hearing. He's like, oh, me and my mom in Abu Dhabi. I was like, wow, no girlfriend yet. He's like, oh, my mom. It's wonderful. I'm not joking. I'm not mad at it. But it's just more so I always look at him. He's like a geeky kid. That's the way I always look at him. But definitely a lover of basketball, and that's one of the qualities Mike Brown talked about. He said Mikal Bridges is a good dude. That was one of the things he kind of keyed in on. Another thing is that he had a relationship with OG Anunoby that we became aware about because of he was doing the Nigerian team and he was trying to recruit OG Anunoby to play for the Nigerian team. So he's had kind of a good rapport, now with Mikal Bridges, and now, of course, with OG, a little bit of history there. But I think the thing that we're seeing also is that Mike Brown, when the thing that knocked him in Sacramento was he always wanted wings. That was the thing. He's like, give me some wings. And Sacramento's like, nah. They don't know how to, they'll get you some duck wings, maybe, because they're not getting chicken wings. Because clearly they dropped the ball in Sacramento. So they're more than New Year's Eve in Manhattan. Because that team just never seems to, maybe with Walt Perry, they might get a little bit better, but they always seem to mess up. But I think that now Mike being here, and I'm only sure this is one of the reasons he was very attracted to this job, is he has the tools now, the guys that he wants. He wants those big wings. We got two of what I consider, and I believe you thought the same thing last season when we talked about the pairing of what we thought would be Dobermans.
Dobermans, baby.
Both Mikal and OG, and then we watched them, and they looked like puppy pals. We were just wondering what the hell's going on because we thought they were ideal for a guy like Tom Thibodeau, who's defensive first mindset. But what we're seeing now is that Mike Brown is like, let me check that one off. I got the dudes that I want. I got the jumbo wings. These are going to be the dudes I'm going to make sure that they eat because he's inspired OG to say, look, you should be a first-team defensive player. You should be in the running for defensive player of the year. And I'm like, well, yeah, hell yeah, he should because I would have thought he would be. And Mitchell Robinson, another guy, albeit not a wing. I'm like, why is he not a defensive player of the year candidate under a defensive coach like Tom Thibodeau for those years? I know, granted, Mitch was injured. We know about his history. Couldn't stay healthy a lot. I understand that. But you do have two other guys capable of being defensive player of the year because Mikal Bridges almost won it a few years back. Mm-hmm. So to look at when Mike Brown comes in, he sees these guys, and he's probably salivating like he's at Buffalo Wild Wings now. He's like, man, I'm going to eat something because these dudes can actually offer a lot as far as giving us the tenacity on the perimeter that we need. And also they're two-way capable of both scoring and defending. What do you think about now when looking at this wing combo of OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges? Do we get a chance to see them in all their sauce, all the ranch dressing, all the dipping sauce? Are we getting the full Monty with these jumbo wings of the New York Knicks this year?
I think we're going to see different wings this year. And it's for a couple of different reasons. I think they're going to eat on offense, and I've said this all last year. You will get better defensive effort from people that are scoring the ball. It's just human nature, and I'm sorry. And we talked about this on one of our shows last year about the failures of the defensive system and the lineups on the defensive wings. In other words, having Towns at center, drop coverage, all of those things, they didn't feel like they could take chances on defense because if their man got by them, it was over. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Knowing that you have a real center back there that is an outstanding defensive player, right? And being fully engaged with the offense and everything like that, I think you're going to see them take more risks and be more aggressive because that's what we were missing. We weren't missing – you weren't missing the talent. These were not aberrations. These are supremely talented defensive wings, right? What you missed was the aggressiveness because I don't believe they felt they could be aggressive and that if they took those risks, it would hurt the overall defensive scheme. Because they didn't have what they. I think they're going to be a lot more engaged. I think to tell you the truth, I think both of them are going to have maybe a career year for Anunoby, but a return to prominence of Mikal Bridges. I think you're going to see more of an equal distribution of scoring and touches and things like that. And I was talking about that last year. Teams like that are hard to defend. I know that a lot of fans want to funnel the offense through your most effective offensive players, but it does make you easier to defend. It just does. So I'm excited about some of what I'm going to see. It's not going to look great right away because they are implementing a new offense that's very different from what they're doing. And it's also an offense that is designed and has structure and has plays. You know, and you're just not reacting to what's going on and I'll do whatever I want. Like they're actually going to have to run an offense.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's going to take time, but I think that the results are going to be there in the long term.
Definitely. I think this is definitely a team that, much like you said, I think you got to use a little bit of caution and patience in the beginning. You know, a lot of time Knicks fans' expectations is that you're going to come out. You know, we have expectations during preseason, so it's just what it is. You know, but a lot of times you've got to just kind of pump your brakes.
Don't win a title in 53 years, and you're going to have expectations.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. But you know what we saw last season was a team back in, and I was a little concerned how they backed into the playoffs. They almost got to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, they backed in. So imagine when they pull up. So we got to be a little bit impatient, knowing that the end result is what matters. Getting into the postseason and being able to cook and be healthy. Being healthy is the main thing. I think they'll cook.
I got to knock on wood somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. If they reach the postseason relatively, everyone as healthy as they can be, but playable healthy, you know, they can still compete at a high level. Man, it's going to be real tough. It's going to be a real tough road for everyone else because you've got a closer in Brunson. You got maybe one of the most talented scorers in Towns. So, and now you got those other guys. If you can get these jumbo wings saying, hey, we're willing to commit to defense as long as we get touches. You know,
they need to figure it out and figure it out by the time playoffs come because I really believe that this is – I know that their window is not going to be closed for a couple of years, but I see this as their window. Like this season is
this is the damn window. This is the damn window. Now, there might be a little jar window the year after. You know, granted, I do think the Knicks are, you know, they've proven last season. Like you hear a lot of people, I'm talking postseason wise, you know, they stepped up. Indiana, obviously, they got outcoached in Indiana. It's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
they did.
I don't think Indiana's more talented. It's just
they have Carlisle.
Carlisle was the MVP.
He's a great coach.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, Reese got his thing. You know, obviously, there's a clutch shot, a very lucky shot in the same sense. You know, that was just really that serendipity, as Walt would say. But needless to say, you know, I don't think they ever recovered, and I don't think they trusted their coach. Yeah. So if you don't have those two things, you're probably going to go home. You're going to go home and eat Snicker bars because it's not going to work for you. So, but yeah, this is the window. I think this is the window, and I understand the urgency of why the Knicks were seeing them, you know, talk about having those vets, you know, maybe sacrificing Pacome Dadier, you know, or Tyler Kolek. You're hearing those.
I'm all for that.
I don't think you know, how can you not think about it? You know, I mean, for me, I like Tyler. I like Tyler. It's not even about.
I like both of them, but
nothing.
They are not on the level of either of those players that are going to turn. They are not going to contribute at the level that either of those players that one of them leaving will keep on the roster.
And another thing too, I look at it from the perspective of this: are those guys down the line? Tyler's older than most people think. He's an older rook, so to say. He's a 4-year player. Dadier, young. Not developed yet, takes time. He's probably like 2 or 3 years away. Are you willing to say in those 2 or 3 years, say Kolek, like he's maxed out, what he is probably what he is. Are you willing to like maybe miss out on an opportunity for a championship, which this is their window this season as we've declared?
No.
Guys that probably won't ever move a needle other than being a role player.
Dadier could move the needle, but that is uncertain.
Yeah, it's
Kolek, I don't see it with Kolek. I really don't. He has one skill. He is not a well-rounded player. He is not a good efficient scorer, and he doesn't play good defense. He passes the ball well. He does one good thing. Brogdon and Shamet are proven NBA commodities.
Yeah.
They are veterans. They're playoff experienced. and we may need them when it comes down to it. And if we do have injuries, which happen,
Yeah.
are you going to trust Pacom Dadier or Tyler Kolek to contribute in those situations? I'm not.
No, I'm not.
And honestly, it's all about this year. It's all about I don't want to hear about development. I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah.
It's been too long. I want to see a ring. I don't care about tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Everything up down the road and start over. But I'm interested in right now.
And I also think like this, when you look at the Knicks structure, people looking at those two guys, like that's the only youth that the Knicks have on their bench. And it's like, well, they've done a great job drafting a lot of guys in the late second round that they can plug in. You got Ariel Haporti. That's a talent. That's a nice young talent. You got Diawara, who has a lot of untapped potential and has shown a little bit of signs that he's a capable player on the floor. So you've seen a kind of a glimpse. When you're looking at Pacom Dadier, I see the footwork as being that he's able to play good defense. However, his open shots have just missed. He has not. That's the one knock I've watched over the last time. I kept seeing that the form is there. I said, well, he's maybe got to get a little bit stronger. But open shots are open shots. That's an open shot. If you can't hit those, then you can't be in the NBA. Because I still think even at this age and point, he's still a professional, and it's an open shot. I would expect him to at least hit more than what he's hitting. I'd love to know his percentage, but that's the one thing I've noticed throughout the whole time he's been here for the last 2 years. When given open shots, he doesn't nail them. And I think he was brought in to shoot, to be a shooter and that wing scorer. So I don't know. I mean, I'm okay sacrificing some pawns because you are absolutely right. This is a window and an opportunity where the East is weakened. The Knicks are playing from a power, from the high ground, so to say. If we want to go Obi-Wan Kenobi, they have the high ground right now. No. And I am of the mindset if you can step on a neck, then why not strangle it also?
No, the most important one to keep is Haporti.
Yeah.
Because it serves a role and a purpose.
Yeah, because when you think about Mitch later and maybe his health or maybe not being long-term solution, Haporti can be that. He brings a lot
right now.
Yeah.
And he's the only one.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest. Yeah. I mean, I like those guys, but I'm not into I like a lot of things. I like lollipops, but that don't mean I go buy them. That's just literally what it is. It's like I'm being greedy right now. And as a Knicks fan, I think if you want a title, you have to be greedy and you have to say, let's make sure we close the window. We don't have no weaknesses. Like we have everything in tow. Because it's going to you're going to war. Yeah. Not war. I don't want people mistaken because I don't want to say like the casualties of real war. I'm saying, but in the playoffs, from a sports standpoint, you're going into war against these teams that want to kill you. They want what you want. So you can't sit there and allow depth or the promise of, oh, maybe this person, maybes make babies. You can't go by maybe. You got to make sure you got something that's proven that you can hang your hat on. And your star power is not old. People act like Jalen's like 40 years old. He's not. These guys are, on the cusp of getting into their prime. They got about a good 4 or 5 years left in their games, maybe longer. A guy like Mikal Bridges might have a longer because of how great in condition he is. So it's not like they're going to fall off anytime soon. I wouldn't think unless it's a major injury, and you can never predict that. So it is what it is.
But it's the injury status of other key players in the Eastern Conference. Well, granted, both of them are going to be coming off Achilles next year, and they're not going to be 100% and everything like that. But you got to take a shot now.
Yeah, take it.
Jet, you got to take a shot now.
I wouldn't even look back, to be very honest. How long we've been waiting?
I was 2 the last time they won.
I was 6 months, I guess. When they hold on. I was born in January 19th of 1973. So we moved forward. The NBA Finals was what, May, June?
It was February 5th, 1971.
Yeah, six months. Yeah. So for me, and I want to show a lot of us who are old heads, maybe these young guys have actually had a chance to see. If you were born in the last 4 years, you've had the greatest Knick viewing you've ever had, or you became a fan last 4 years because Jalen Brunson arrived and clearly magical times for New York Knicks fans. I think for us as older heads, we appreciate what we're seeing, and we're like, yeah, get it done, because we've not seen a team this talented ever assembled under our time of watching. You know, maybe Bob Greenberg, shout out to Bob Greenberg, he saw an electric team that was capable of winning a title. But, you know, even during the 90s when we had those teams with Ewing, we always knew that the talent was always going to be a little bit short. So, you know, and Michael Jordan was playing. So what are you going to do?
And something that's to pigeon off of what Eric's going on in the comments right now.
So he wants
we pushed an Eric button.
Oh, because he wants the young. That's all right.
So we've never seen a team this competitive that was also constructed this way.
Yeah.
None of these dudes are draft picks except for Mitch.
That's it.
We've never, ever seen our top 4, possibly 5 players were imported.
Yeah. Yeah, and the elder statesman is, like you said, is Mitch. You know, that's the thing that you learn is that most championship teams, I think all of them, they've at least had one of the original draft picks.
Yeah,
part of the championship team.
Drafted a significant part of the core.
Yeah. So when you look at it, look at the guys who have been drafted that are still here in the maintaining. We have Deuce McBride, who's a contributor, a huge contributor. We got Mitchell Robinson, a huge. Those dudes may be 2 of the most important players on the Knicks squad. When you think about it, albeit their roles are not as superstars, they are superstars in their role. You need that guy coming off the bench like Deuce McBride who can give you that pop and that catch and shoot, which he's excelled at. You know, he shoots a nice.
Key role players are important on a championship team.
Yep.
Look at the Pistons and how important some of those, the Isaiah Thomas Pistons, and how important some of those role players were. Guys like James Edwards.
John Sally.
John Sally. You know,
young Rodman when he wasn't Rodman that we know.
Vinnie Johnson.
Microwaved it up. Yeah. You know, that team had depth. I never understand why teams. I know we're Piston oriented today, but those teams were constructed with a purpose. Like everything had a purpose. You know, they had their defenders and their scorers. Very well balanced team. So it's like the Knicks now have a lot of that resemblance when you look at it. You know, Karl-Anthony Towns is not the defender of probably any of the Pistons. You know, not being funny, he's just not. But when you look at the structure of this team, we have enough depth at the 5. We have some versatility where we could be interchangeable at the 4 with Yabusele and Karl-Anthony Towns. You know, OG can play a little 4. I don't like him there, but he can play it. And then you got your interchangeable wings. The Knicks have the most depth. I'm not saying it because I'm a homer. This is this team has more depth than any team, I think, in the NBA when I think about it. Because,
I'm not going to argue with you on that.
Because you look at the talent.
Again, that's the front office. They fixed their main problem with limited resources.
Yep.
Like they plugged the hole with like socks and duct tape, and anything like that, anything they could find around the house, but they plugged the hole.
And managed to keep some youth in tow. It's not this team is being constructed. Leon Rose probably doesn't get enough credit because we obviously want the ultimate goal is a ring, but when you look at the totality, and this team is structured. I'm not saying they don't have flaws, but the real flaw was the coach. Yeah. That's why he got replaced, because I think they saw, well, what else could they do to the roster when you think about it? What else could they have done to the roster to improve it that much greater than what the coach made more underwhelming? Because you got a star in Jalen Brunson. You got an all-star in Karl-Anthony Towns. You got 2 of the best. You know, you and I are preaching this all the time. You have probably arguably the best 2 wings in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm bullish. I'm bullish on those wings. I always have been.
They're the best 2. The only person I might give when he's not even always healthy is Trey Murphy III. I like how he defends. You know, a guy like Tyrese, they're good defenders. But we're talking about guys that can give you 20 and stop somebody else.
Who's that guy in Minnesota? The small forward that they have there. I'm forgetting his name, but he's solid.
Yeah, he is solid. I know he's is it a Jalen? Is it Jay?
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, another solid. But when you're talking about, you have 2 of the top 10 wings. I mean, if I'm just being given a cushion as a Knick, saying, "Oh, don't be biased." So there are at least 2 of the top 10 small forwards or wings in the game. And when you get into the 5 position, you have the best offensive rebounder in the NBA on the Knicks. You know, sometimes it's the perspective because we're fans, we're sitting in the seats going and complaining. That's what we tend to do. But it's like, if you were to take a step back, tell me where the weaknesses are. Tell me what it is that you would add to this team now and say, they'd be way better if they did this. They are a championship caliber team that needed a championship caliber coach to get them over the hump and push them to that level where we can walk away with some sort of hardware in June. That's the thing I feel like we're missing. Who would you take right now? I mean, there's a short list of guys in the clutch. Well, he won Clutch Player of the Year. There's very few guys I'm taking over Jalen Brunson in the entire NBA. The entire NBA. So you have one of one. You have one of the few that you say, get me a bucket and close this damn thing. And he's going to close the door more than Teddy Pendergrass. He's going to close the damn door on you. So it's like, how many other – who's going to go? Luka? Jokic?
Yes. Jokic, yes.
SGA? It's like 3 maybe dudes that you might say, maybe they'll beat Jalen in the clutch. Maybe.
Yeah. For the record, that was Jaden McDaniels.
I know it was a J. I couldn't think of it. There's a lot of J's out there. All right. So, you know what? Let's move. I want to talk about this guy a little bit here because we're moving along and try to get up out of here in a little few. Artichoke dipping. That's what I'm going to talk about because I'm just going my little diatribe here with Josh Hart. I laugh at the Knicks fans because I understand people. You find somebody you're going to talk about. There's going to be some person you're going to pick on. You know, there's going to be that one person you go, oh, they're going to zero in on him and his flaws or what he didn't do. Jalen Brunson just hasn't gotten his turn, but he'll have his turn at some point too. Where you're talking about the flaws of a player. I look at a guy like Josh Hart, and there's a lot of Josh Hart slander now. You know, Josh Hart obviously got hurt. He hurt his back during the preseason games in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, he has a finger issue, you know, that's been talked about. And I laugh at the whole finger issue and then looking at Josh Hart being injured. Well, guess how he probably is sore and beaten up and why his back is probably out? Because he gave every damn thing on to the Knicks every single game he's ever been out there. And I'm saying that because I think people are not appreciating what Josh does on his team. Yeah. Should he probably not have been starting? Yeah. Did he make himself start? No. It was the coach. Did he get overused? Did he ask himself to get overused? No. The coach overused him. Should he have been playing in certain situations? No. The coach put him in those situations. He's a soldier. He's going to go out and do whatever he is asked to do, no matter how injured, how hurt. If Tom Thibodeau had said run through 3 walls, Josh Hart would have ran through all 3 and bought more bricks just in case he wanted to run through 4. That is the type of player he is. And I don't know if people have been watching enough of his games over this past years he's been here. The dude is a damn friggin' dog. He leaves it out. He is the thing that Knicks fans should be more admiring instead of criticizing, because when you look at what we had in the past, guys not getting effort, guys not being tough, guys not playing through injuries, guys not selling out everything on the floor, leaving out. People love the Oakleys of the world. They love those dudes. We have a guy in Josh Hart. Yeah. Do you want him shooting a lot? Yeah, he's not a great shooter.
No.
He's not a great shooter. I don't think he says he's a great shooter. Is he a reluctant shooter at times? Yeah, because he knows he's not a great shooter. So he goes out and he makes plays. But what does he walk away with almost damn near every game? A double-double. That's what he does. He's a guard, averaging almost 10 rebounds. He's probably the best rebounder on the Knicks. You don't get that by being a chump or a scrub. You get that because you wanting it. That's
so
what
the reports of his demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Great.
Nothing for nothing. I heard somebody explain Josh Hart once in the media, and they said that he is more valuable to the Knicks than he would be to any other basketball franchise. And it's very, very true because he's entwined with the core and is one of the base components of what this team's identity is.
Yes. Yes.
And again, I think him going to the bench is going to be good.
Mhm.
I think he will come in and make an impact however he needs to do. It's easy to forget because you look at the limitations, and yes, there are limitations.
Mhm.
But I can think of so many magical things he's done in his time here. And he makes things happen. And that is something that cannot be taught. That is something you cannot instill in somebody. It is intuitive. It is instinct. And he has that in spades. And the guy's got the heart of a lion.
Absolutely.
Again, I do see his role diminishing. But again, I think that's a good thing. I think he might have been miscast, like you were just saying.
Yeah.
But you need to put him in. You need something to happen. Put him in, and something's going to happen. Something good's going to happen.
Something's going to happen.
And he knows his limitations offensively. Maybe the finger bothered him because in the beginning of last year, he was stroking it pretty good.
Yeah. No, he was.
He reminds me of Greg Anthony a little bit in that he shoots better when it matters.
Yeah. Under pressure.
He shoots better when it matters. I always said that about Greg Anthony. He had a crappy field goal percentage, but he hit big shots.
Really when it matters.
Yeah.
Josh is better under duress. He's always, whenever that ball is getting, it's a scramble and they give him that shot, I'm like, that's going in. Now, if you allow him time to think and set up, it's probably not going to go in. But I just want to put some respect on that man's name because he's a hooper. He's one of the few players I've seen in the last whatever amount of years that we've been terrible, who earned every bit of his contract.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't cheat anybody on the floor. There's not a. I think what gets pushed about Josh is his goofiness, which I think he's funny as hell. I find him very entertaining. His conversations on the roommates, I always enjoy watching him because he's going to come up and say something that he probably. It's like I don't know, like a smirk. Is going to come out with something that he shouldn't probably ever open his mouth about, but he's just willing to. Telling Reggie Miller. I mean, how can Knicks fans not love Josh Hart when he told Reggie Miller what Knicks fans thought of him on live TV? I mean, you serious? You don't criticizing that dude. No. Not criticizing Josh Hart for nobody.
Something, man. We talk about how Thibodeau created a culture.
Yeah.
And what he contributed to the culture and how grateful we are for him doing that.
Yes, absolutely.
The second biggest contributor to the current Knicks culture might be Josh Hart.
I think so. I don't think so. I'm going to say I know so. Because his impact, as soon as he came to the Knicks, it wasn't like, because I was a doubter because I've said it before. I said he was on IG giving light skin energy. I'm like, we've seen this movie before. I'm like, oh, you're going to come in and he's snarling on them. I'm like, all right, dude, whatever. Gets in the game and I'm like, well, damn, he shut me down because he has never stopped since he came here,
Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah, and you gotta kill that dude to stop him. And I think Knicks fans get out of your own way sometimes because you're not saying this is not the guy they built a team around. This is a guy who's part of the fabric of a team. He's probably the most ultimate. He reminds me a lot of not that they play the game, but he reminds me of Dennis Rodman, like that guy that just comes out of somewhere and he snatches either a rebound or make a key play, and it sends a fervor throughout the arena because you're watching him and you're like, damn, he probably won't shoot great, but what else does he do great? He does everything else but shoot very well.
And he sets the standard for what acceptable effort is for a New York Knick.
Motors.
Which is everything you got.
Everything. How can someone look at that guy and talk about they're not going to go out there? They're not going to roll out. I think the greatest thing I thought he told Mitchell Robinson, Mitch was like, yeah, they're talking about rebounding. Obviously, they both savants at doing it. And he's like, yeah, but I get the rebounds that snatch people's heart. I snatch their souls out. And it's facts because you never expect that little dude to come over there and he's averaging, 9 points and 9 rebounds?
Mm-hmm.
What more? And I would love to throw that out to Knicks fans. You have a role player that's almost getting a double-double and he's undersized. What more do you want? What more would anybody want him to do?
Yeah.
I would like to know. So when I hear about this whole Josh is terrible. man, go somewhere with that. That dude has been more New York than any player I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of watching what Jalen Brunson's done, more New Yorkish, Josh Hart, because he gives the fans what they've always wanted, which is to give a damn, to show like you care. And
He's done the colors and the uniform proud.
Yeah.
And he'll continue to.
Yeah.
You'll never see him give less than 100%.
That's facts. That's facts. So look, this is going to be our last topic. Speaking of effort, we're talking about effort because this kind of brings home the whole Josh Hart thing when you think about it, in my perspective, because we talk about guys who leave it out on the floor. That's what Knicks fans always want. They want the high motor guy. They want the guy that looks like he never will quit, that he keeps coming and he keeps coming like a locomotive and he doesn't stop and he's a juggernaut. So we talk about someone talking about taking some Greek out of
Maron.
Greek takeout around New York. Now, from what I'm hearing, people don't like Josh Hart, who can't shoot. But there's a lot of energy about another guy who really can't shoot, but you never question him too much. You'd want him on your team. A lot of people said they want him on their team. We've had the little woodpecker, as I call him, the well-dressed woodpecker, which is Shams, decided to break out. That's what he looks like, a woodpecker to me. He looks like Woody Woodpecker. He decided that to drop what it was his version of a Woj bomb and talk about the fact that the New York Knicks and the Milwaukee Bucks actually had some conversation surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo and the trade for him. Probably ill timing. He probably wanted clicks. Knicks for clicks, to bring this up right now. I don't think it was a big secret.
Woj is a tough act to follow, and I think he's manufacturing.
Yeah, and he fell. I tell you, Woody Woodpecker's falling very short because he wants to be that guy, and Woj was that guy, and
Woj was the guy.
He was the guy. So his connections, I mean, often imitated but not duplicated, literally in this situation. But we think about a guy who has a high motor, a guy who has some flaws to his game, major flaws in my opinion, a guy who can't shoot free throws, a guy who does not have an outside shot, but a guy with a high motor and an MVP under his, a few MVPs under his wing, also a championship ring under his wing. A lot of people are, high on getting some Greek food in New York. We don't know what the parameter or the cost of the Greek food would be in order to get it here. But however, there's been strong talks amongst Knicks fans about wanting to bring this guy in by any means necessary, which would mean that you would actually have a lot of your team. That's literally what it's going to come down to, unless you yourself to make it so that you take either what the Knicks got or, I'm going there one way or another. So, needless to say, if you love Giannis, you should love a lot about what Josh Hart brought to the table, but obviously one is an elite talent. What is your thoughts, Joe, when thinking about
I got a lot of thoughts on this.
How they're currently constructed? I believe we have a championship team. Once again, I brought up before, where's our flaw? I can't tell you a major flaw about the Knicks other than the coaching was a flaw. So there's a lot of weight on Mike Brown. I don't think the weight is on the talent per se. It's just whether or not you can get this team healthy and playing in unison and playing within a system. I think that's the difference maker. So for people, some people are like, nah, let's just do the complete overkill. As much as we said about getting Brogdon and getting Shaman and sacrificing a couple of the Utes, well, people are talking about sacrificing more than the Utes. They're talking about send them OG Anunoby. If Bridges wasn't, ineligible, send him too. Send them whatever they want as long as we get Giannis.
I heard Stephen A. say he would give everything except Brunson for him. I got to talk about this for a minute because this is fandom hysteria.
Yeah, it is.
Right now, we're not building the team anymore. We have the team. If you throw all of our players away and then bring this guy in, we're building the team from the ground up again.
Yeah.
Which means we're missing our window this year.
Yes.
I understand in isolation, a talent like that is very hard to say no to. But again, is it going to cost you Carl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, someone else, and then you're scrambling to fill those holes that you lost your depth? If we were building the team still, if we didn't have the Towns move and we still had some of our draft picks, yeah, sure, do it.
Do it.
Bring him on. We'll figure out the rest of the roster, whatever assets we have left, whatever we have left of the salary cap. Yeah, let's do it.
Mhm.
Now is not the time to do that trade.
No.
This is not the time to blow up the roster again and scramble to fill a bunch of holes that you just created by sending 3 impact players for 1. So again, people may think I'm crazy. Stick with what you got. You've built chemistry with them. Let this roll because I think we have enough. I really think we have enough to win this year.
I agree.
I'm not saying we're definitely winning. I'm not a fool, but we do have enough to win. And when was the last time you could say that? So you're going to destabilize this right now, blow it up, and to stick another high talent in there while you're sending out strong talents on the way out. I think this is madness and it's fan hysteria. And I don't think a sensible front office would really do this. The only way that this happens, in all seriousness, is Giannis leans on them and they take what we give them, which would probably be Towns and filler.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't make that trade.
No.
That trade comes up, yeah, sure, fine, do it. But it's not going to be that trade. It's never that trade.
No, never. Never. You're going to pay that. You're going to pay that.
I know that it makes for great content on the Clown Shark shows on ESPN and everything like that. And the Stephen A's of the world, and stick with what you got. You built the thing for a reason because you thought you could win with it. You removed the parts, you cut out the cancer that you thought was keeping you from getting there. Let it roll. Have faith. Let it build from here. I think we got enough.
I agree with you 100%. I'm a fan of Giannis. Is one of those dudes. He reminds me of my fandom for Russell Westbrook. Would I pick Russell Westbrook to build a franchise around?
No.
Oh no.
But you got to admire the guy.
But would I book him as a motivational speaker in the locker room? Oh, absolutely.
He's all heart, that guy.
Yeah, he brings exactly everything you want to hear a player say and behave like on the court, like it's us versus the world. He's willing to take on the world. When I look at, there's 2 MVPs that I've said this about consistently. One is Giannis and the other one is Russell Westbrook. They may be the 2 most flawed MVPs I've ever seen because what their games are beautiful games in the sense of the energy they bring, the tenacity they bring. They never stop, coming after. They never stop attacking. Yeah, that to me, that would be New York basketball in a lot of ways. Who wouldn't like that? Unless Josh Hart, they don't want Josh Hart doing it. But I'm just saying they want that kind of attitude. But I think the thing that's missing from a lot of the perspective is the shortcomings of some of these players. When we look at a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, his shortcoming is defense. That's his shortcoming. Rest of his game has no shortcomings.
No.
You look at Giannis. What is Giannis' shortcomings?
Can't shoot.
Can't shoot. Can't shoot a free throw. Can't shoot a perimeter shot.
Doesn't really distribute.
Doesn't distribute. He has to hold the ball a lot. He's a one-man fast break, which is great. But when you think along the lines of basketball, and we're talking about strategy to close out games. So we're getting to the most important games. Your game 7 of the finals, you're down by 2, or you're down by 2. You're down by 2, and you need 2 free throws. You sending Giannis to the line? Knicks fans? You're going to put him on the line? You okay? They foul him. They hack a Giannis. They put him on the line. I just want to know how many diapers is everybody buying in New York you know that they're going to have some fecal deposits in their pants. As you sit nervously while you know that there's a 52-year drought, and you're sitting there like, oh, you know, we can win the game or stay in the game. You putting Carl on that, or you putting Giannis on that? I just want to know how many diapers we buy, because that's what you're signing up for when you start talking about some of these players, because you're looking at the name on the back of the jersey. You're looking at that aspect of it. And yet, granted, his resume is beautiful. You know, he's in multiple MVP, won a title. We got to realize that season was a little bit short too, but he did win a title. Yes. Did he hit his free throws in the close? Yes, he did. But are you confident in that all the time? Like when you have a player, and that's what this NBA has always been about, take away what guys are great at doing. And what do you do after that? So if you know you can foul somebody at the end of a game because they can't complete a free throw, we see it with Mitch. We see Mitch.
Could you imagine both of them in the fourth quarter of a close game?
You know, people are like, oh, throw them both out there. Really? So you're depending. So now they're saying we're going to take Brunson completely out of the game. And we're going to foul this guy. We're going to keep fouling these guys because he has flaws in his game. You know, so there's a certain type of team you have to structure around Giannis in order for him to blossom. Like I said, the year they won, I'm not trying to asterisk, but I think it was a shortened season a little bit or something, or post-COVID, or I think it was an abbreviated season a little bit. You know, they played against Phoenix that kind of dropped the ball also.
They won after the Lakers won in the bubble, I think, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. And Middleton was a beast during that season, that series. That's what doesn't get talked about. He was a beast. He was a huge difference maker because you couldn't sit there and let Middleton go off when he's very healthy. So we look at Giannis and go, well, he was the star. He's the MVP. He won the finals. Yeah, he's the best player. But that don't mean you're the best player in certain situations. They can take you out of the game by fouling you. They can they can wall up on you and make you shoot shots that you can't shoot. So when you're going and saying, just give me the Greek, give me the falafels, you know, bring me the falafels, you know, give me the feta, you know, the calamari olives, and, you know, with schmear, put it on some pita. You're asking for all these things from him, but you're not knowing what he brings to the table also is a lot of flaws that can prevent you from winning big. Because when you have a basketball player and simple things that are fundamental things can take them out of the game, you got an athlete. You don't got a basketball player. You got an athlete. You got to have an athlete, and that's what he is. Same with Russell Westbrook. He can't shoot free throws now. He can't shoot a perimeter shot. And he's out of the league pretty much at this point because no one has re-signed him. An MVP, a former MVP, who's like a few hundred points away from moving up on the scoring list. And nobody signs him because they know he got flaws in his game. And now Giannis is going to get older. How does that work? Athleticism goes.
Athleticism is the first thing to go.
First thing to go. So now you got a guy who's going to clumsily, which I believe the NBA, in my opinion, made him a great star by not calling travels. That's why he's elite, because he takes 4 steps.
Yeah.
Technically, you can call travel every time he touches the ball. And guarantee you, Knicks fans, what happens when he becomes a Knick? What do you think happens when he puts on that uniform? And he's dressed in all that orange and blue skies. They're gonna call every damn travel in the world on him. They're gonna call every travel on him.
I went even darker. I thought Antonio McDyess.
Yeah. Look. Well, that too. Look, let me tell you, Knicks fans, I always tell people about myself personally. I said, I'm always happy with the problems I have. My problems. I'm happy with my problems. I don't want nobody else's problems. Knicks fans be very leery when you're sitting there and looking at a team that I think is constructed extremely well. Very solid foundation. You have all that you need to win.
Fans love the shiny object, though.
Yeah, and that shiny little penny gonna get rusty because you got to sit there and look at the fact that you have maybe. I don't even want to say maybe. I just don't want to just take that full brunt of standing on it. But I'm gonna stand on business. I think it's the best team the Knicks ever had since I've been watching. This is the best team.
I agree.
Best team.
I'm not even going to argue.
So don't go here messing it up trying to get cute. No. You know, you've already gotten through the door. You already won the lottery. You don't go you win a lottery ticket and get $20 million. You don't put $20 million on black and say, let me take another shot at it. You have everything you need. If the Knicks fall short, it's just what it's supposed to be. But Giannis, to me, is taking a step back. in a lot of ways, maybe 2 or 3 steps back, because all the hard work and I'm more than sure Leon Rose is not stupid. I think if he negotiated, Mikal Bridges was probably one of the thoughts to wrap that package around. That's why he wasn't re-signed early.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't extended.
It was the Giannis factor.
Yeah. So you look at that, and then how many balls you gonna move around? This guy needs the rock in his hand. Jalen Brunson needs the rock in his hand. Karl-Anthony Towns needs the rock in his hand. You know, chemistry-wise, the Knicks right now, and when you look at a little bit of the fluidity what Mike Brown has instituted, and you start overlooking the team, we have enough. It's just about gelling and seeing where the chips land by the time the postseason starts. And that's what we should be looking at, not Greek takeout. Although I did have Greek takeout today, so I'm going to go eat once I get off.
I think you should be eating right about now.
Yes, sir. So look, all nicked up. We will try to. Hopefully, we'll be back next week. You know, if we have some content. I know there's a game tomorrow, I believe, against Minnesota.
Starters are going to play more minutes, apparently.
Who's that you said?
Starters are going to play more minutes, apparently.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm more than sure Minnesota came off of a win. No, they lost last night. I think they lost to Indiana. So they should probably be ready to try to come in here and kind of spoil Julius stop smoking the stuff, you know. So
last point I want to make.
Yes.
ESPN, I think, had on the projections had Minnesota as like the 8th seed in the West. Yeah.
Wow.
I read that this morning. Unless I think I read that correctly. I had them as an 8th seed.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you one thing. I think Anthony Edwards is probably a phenomenal talent. I've never kind of questioned that when he's in Alabama. You could tell he has a talent. I just don't. There's talent and there's superstars. You know, he has superstar potential. Yeah. But I've watched, I always say they always go to the next Michael Jordan. I was like, the only thing they got in common is that both of them are black, both of them are tall, and both of them play basketball. The only 3 things they got in common. He's not a Michael Jordan. They need to stop telling them lies to the public. He has a lot more to do before he could ever be Michael Jordan's. He might be Michael Jordan's son.
Definitely nice, though.
He's nice. He's a nice player, but I think that there's a maturation. I don't know if I've said this. The maturation.
Does he have? How many different mothers does he have? That's a maturity thing.
And my biggest thing as a brown person is his need to go from M to N. And he stays stuck on N. That N letter, he has no problem saying it during press conferences. And I don't know why someone hasn't pulled him to the side and said, bruh, especially people who got this, you can't be doing it. Mm-hmm. That's just disgusting behavior. You want to cut a rap album? We'll cut a rap album, but you shouldn't be in the public. You know, not that it should be accepted in the first place, but his press conferences, they are cringeworthy for a black man. And you need to grow up, dog. I know you might not see our podcast is too small for you to see, but I hope somebody could tell you what I said, because you need to have an adult in the room to monitor your word activity. That's disgusting. Just keep it in one. Anyway, all nicked up. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend. Go Yankees. Hopefully they're winning something, because Lord knows the New York fan base needs something. So for Joe and Tyran, we out. We'll see you next week.